on behalf of the victims, in support of the victims. But the question is, what next for them?
I think there's several options for the victims. One, we must remember that there has been no conclusive decision by the ICC chambers to terminate any of the two Kenyan cases. We also have to remember that victims still do require to see justice done, both at the national level and at the international level. Specifically in Kenya, we would want to see more concrete and positive steps being taken by the government of Kenya to actually establish credible judicial processes that would deliver justice for the post-election violence victims.
Well, Esther, it would appear that everyone is sort of looking to this trial and this case at the ICC to get justice for the victims. But what happens if the case, for example, is terminated, or if the case concludes concludes all the way to the end and the accused are found to be not guilty?
We must understand that the cases before the court are actually a process of truth-telling for the victims. So through the trial process, we're going to be able to unearth certain facts that for the longest time we've not been able to get. But over and above the ICC cases, as I said earlier, the Kenyan government has the primary responsibility of ensuring that it brings the perpetrators of the post-election violence to justice.
Do you think there is any hope of the victims, as you've mentioned, getting justice back home if this doesn't work out? Going back to that question.
I think that there are opportunities which must be seized by the government of Kenya. For instance, we must invest heavily on investigations. We've recently had the Director of Public Prosecutions indicating that he cannot prosecute over 4,000 cases of the post-election violence on account of lack of evidence. So I do believe that because there is no time limit in law on when you can bring criminal cases, the government should then consciously begin to have serious investigations and bring the perpetrators to book.
All right. We're also being told that if this case stalls or for some reason or the other the deadlock continues, then the international state parties could take over. What would this mean for the victims as we wrap up?
If the judges do decide to forward to the Assembly of State Parties a determination that the Kenyan government has not effectively cooperated, then it will remain for the Assembly of State Parties to then take such measures as may be necessary to get the Kenyan government to comply as a state party to the Rome Statute. This, in effect, will give victims a sense of hope that actually they can still hope to see justice before the International Criminal Court.
Okay, and what about those ones like Jacqueline who've already lost hope? I didn't see any members of parliament chanting here on their behalf. What happens to them?
I really understand why Jacqueline would feel the way she does. Obviously, the cases have taken close to 7 years, and we haven't seen any concrete, steps towards justice. But over and above that, we must remember that there are over 700 victims who are actively participating in the case at the ICC against the president.
Okay. And finally, my final question to you. I'm sorry, I'm just getting interrupted. The final question to you with regard to the victims, what happens if at the end, or rather I should ask a different question, what happens are we caring enough for the victims as Kenyans? Have we forgotten about them? If the ICC case wasn't here, would we still be talking about the victims?
Edith, that's the unfortunate thing. In Kenya, we appear as though we've totally eclipsed the victims from all justice processes, both nationally and here at The Hague. Even you rightly pointed that today, with all the members of parliament, with all the politicians, with all the demonstrations, we haven't seen anyone, demonstrating on behalf of the victims. So that support, that conscious effort to, stand in support of the victims is almost totally lost.
Okay. Thank you very much, Esther Waweru from the Kenya Human Rights Commission. She says that we don't speak nearly enough about the victims. We've almost even forgotten about them. I wonder what you think. I also wonder what Nancy Kachingira and Wilson Buru think. I hand you over back to them in studio. We'll be back at The Hague in a short while.